Welcome to the Photos of the Past channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. This photo depicts a man in the Belgian Congo, punished for resisting forced rubber collection. The objects in front of him are the severed hands of his murdered family. It stands as one of the most brutal examples of colonial atrocities. This photograph reveals the darkest side of slavery. Standing beside his mother, this child embodies the brutal punishments and inhumane conditions endured by enslaved people. The scars on his body serve as physical evidence of the pain inflicted. This image stands as a call to remember and confront the injustices of human history. This photo reveals the cruel face of slavery. The chained child, forced to carry a heavy wooden plank, reflects the inhumanity of the system through their innocent expression. Even children were subjected to forced labor, becoming victims of this brutal era. This photograph captures the harrowing journey of Africans chained aboard slave ships. The exhaustion and despair on their faces reflect the cruelty of the inhumane colonial system. Many perished on these vessels during their forced voyage. This photograph depicts the gold mines where indigenous people were forced to work during the colonial era. While upper-class colonizers observed, natives were made to search for gold under inhumane conditions. This scene of labor exploitation highlights the brutal reality of that period. This photograph showcases the colonial period when natives were forced to carry white colonizers. Their sweat and fatigue were merely tools for the colonizers' luxurious lifestyles. This image symbolizes the injustice and trampling of human dignity during that dark era. This photograph remains a symbol of racial segregation and an inhumane system. Capturing a moment where white children place a black child in a cage for amusement, it reflects the injustices of the past and a societal order that overshadowed the innocence of childhood. This image reveals the oppression imposed by colonial powers on Native Africans. Hundreds of individuals were detained in camps for their freedom struggles. Stripped of their basic human rights, these people stand as a silent symbol of resistance. This image symbolizes the inequality of the colonial era. The colonial woman bathing in comfort while native servants stand by reflects the submission required to maintain such luxury. This scene unveils a dark chapter in human history. This photograph depicts the exploitation of slave labor on coffee plantations during Brazil's rise in the global coffee trade. Men and women are seen working in the drying fields, their harsh conditions starkly contrasting the opulent plantation house visible in the background. Only 1 out of 100 people subscribes. Maybe you'll be that one. Let's continue exploring historical photos. This photograph symbolizes the horrific oppression under Belgian King Leopold II's rule in Congo. The object in the child's hand represents the loss of his family and the cruelty of the colonizers. This scene stands as a grim reminder of humanity's dark past. This photo captures the harrowing reality of slave markets. The chained man symbolizes a shameful chapter in human history. The crowd in the background reflects a society complicit in this inhumane trade. This photograph depicts 2 African men in chains. The shackles symbolize the inhuman slave trade of the colonial era. Their gazes convey the pain and resilience of lives robbed of freedom. This photograph showcases the dehumanization of slaves, reduced to human labor to carry their owners. While the woman sits comfortably in the sedan chair, the slaves are burdened with her weight. It serves as a bitter reminder of the inhumane and cruel system of slavery. This photograph captures the despair of a man forced into labor during the colonial era. The burden on his shoulders is not just physical, it symbolizes the weight of his enslaved existence. His expression cries out the shameful history of humanity for all to see. This photograph depicts enslaved miners working in colonial-controlled mines. Forced to labor under the scorching sun and in inhumane conditions, these individuals endured immense physical and mental suffering. The image stands as a stark reminder of the dark economic foundations of a bygone era. This photograph reflects the inhumane treatment of indigenous peoples under the guise of science during Western colonialism. The pygmies of the Atura forest were viewed as research objects. This scene disregards human dignity, revealing the dark side of history. This photograph illustrates how indigenous peoples were objectified as symbols of power and status during the colonial era. Depicting a white woman holding an indigenous child, This moment reflects the colonial mindset and reveals the profound inequalities of that time. This image, taken in Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone, during the colonial period, showcases the haunting reality of slavery. The French inscription, Bonne Année, Happy New Year, written on their bodies symbolizes the horrifying commodification of human lives during that era. This photo depicts a man ensnared in a net, symbolizing the inhumane treatment during the slave trade. It remains one of history's darkest examples of human cruelty. The sorrow in his eyes reflects the silent scream of a soul deprived of its freedom. This photo depicts the harsh life of a child rescued from slavery. The torn clothes symbolize the pain and neglect he endured. This child stands as a symbol of the struggle for freedom, forever etched in history. Louis Martin was a figure who endured the brutal face of slavery during the American Civil War. His lost limbs reflect the cruelty of the era, but his resilience symbolizes the strength of the human spirit. He is remembered as a symbol of dignity and resistance. This photograph reveals the horror of mass slave transportation during the colonial era. These individuals, chained together, were stripped of their freedom and treated as mere commodities. This image silently screams one of the darkest moments in human history. This photograph symbolizes the forced labor system during the colonial era, where Black women worked as nannies for white families. The child on her back highlights the dramatic disparity in status and power, while the woman's weary yet resilient expression speaks volumes about the burdens of the time. This photograph reveals a tragic reality of the colonial era. The native warrior standing next to the little white child was, in fact, a gifted tribal slave from the family. Such practices starkly illustrate the inhuman systems of the time and the cruel face of colonialism. This man, an African American freed from the chains of slavery, paid a heavy price for his liberty. He lost his family in the fight for freedom, never seeing his children again. Standing tall, he symbolizes resilience, tied only to the memory of everything he lost.